I've got lots of great news to cover off in this video. The first item we're going to talk about is the Canon RF 35mm f1.2 L series USM lens. Then we're going to do an updated Canon RF roadmap where we're going to talk about all the lenses that we can expect to see coming out this year. But before I get into both of those two news items, it's time to talk about the Nikon Z9 and Firmware 2.0. Earlier this morning, Firmware 2.0 dropped and is available for download. We also have a firmware update for the Nikon Z7 Mark II and the Z6 Mark II firmware 1.4. Both firmwares are available for download. However, I do recommend waiting to see if there's any issues with the firmware update before applying. Both firmware updates look to be very, very exciting, adding an incredible number of capabilities to the video, to the still system, to the display. There's over 50 different enhancements and capabilities in firmware 2.0 for the Nikon Z9 alone. I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications if you want to have the latest news and rumors as it comes out. Now let's talk about the Canon RF 35mm f1.2 L series USM lens. This lens has been rumored to be coming out for several years now. It was on Craig's initial lens roadmap for 2021, and only now are we getting an update. The lens, the 35mm f1.2 L series USM, is due to be announced in the third quarter of this year. So that could be July, August, or September. The lens is currently with testers. It's also with Canon's marketing department, and it has been added to the roadmap of overseas retailers. So if it's in the hands of testers and it's been added to overseas roadmaps and it's with marketing, we should know that it's absolutely an f1.2, correct? Yeah, not exactly. According to Canon rumors, we don't know at this point whether it's going to be an f1.2 or an f1.4, and I find that a little bit odd. How could we not know the aperture of this lens? It's one of the key specifications of a lens. f1.2 or f1.4, it's in testers. How could that information not get out? I personally hope it is an f1.2. I have the Canon 50mm f1.2, and wow, that lens is incredible. It's rare that I actually get down to f1.2, although quite often I will go to f1.8, f1.6, especially when I'm shooting in low light situations like the forest around sunrise or sunset. But f1.4, f1.2, I think both are pretty good, but we don't know anything about the price of this lens. We don't know any other details other than we're looking at a Q3 release. We're at the end of April, so we could have this lens announced in just over 2 months. I mean, May is just a few weeks away. Can you believe that? Just unbelievable how fast this year is going. But now let's take a look at the lens roadmap for 2022. This comes from Craig at Canon Rumors. He put this out late in 2020 of lenses that were supposed to be coming out in 2021. And if you'll notice, there are some familiar lenses here. All those lenses in green, those are lenses that have already been announced. So we've got the Canon RF 14 to 35mm, the 70 to 200, the 100 to 400. We've got several prime lenses, the dual fisheye, the 5.2mm, and we have the 16mm and the 50mm. And the 16mm, despite costing more, doesn't have this switch, and I find that rather annoying, which is one of the reasons why I haven't purchased this lens. There's a few caveats to this lens that as a video shooter, I'm just not overly impressed with it. Canon also announced the RF 100mm f2.8, which I absolutely love. It's a great macro lens. And as far as the RF super telephoto lenses, Canon has delivered on all but one, and that's the RF 50mm f. What's remarkable about the 18 to 45mm is that focal length is a common focal length for APS-C cameras, and Canon doesn't have any APS-C cameras on the RF mount, although there is a rumored camera coming out that will be on the RF mount that's a follow-up to the 7D Mark II, and it's supposed to be called the Canon R7. So who knows, maybe the R7 will be announced very shortly. According to Canon rumors, it was supposed to be announced in March, but crickets chirping. It's Wednesday, the 20th of April, and no wind of the R7 in any way whatsoever. I have put out feelers, but nothing to this point. Of course, the RF 35mm f1.2, which we talked about at the beginning of this video, is due for a Q3 announcement. Also, the RF 135mm f1.4L. I'm really looking forward to the RF 135mm prime. But if you remember back a couple of years, we were rumored to be getting a 70 to 135. So I'm not sure what's happening with that 135 focal length, whether we're going to see it in a prime or whether we're going to see it in a zoom lens. But it looks like at this point, Canon rumors is really set on telling us that we're going to be getting a prime 135, and that zoom is probably nowhere to be seen at this point. So many rumors on different lenses that are coming out that I've stopped covering them because there's so many and very few of them actually come to pass. This list that we're looking at right now, it has a high accuracy rate. As you can see here, all the lenses that have come out There were a few mistakes in terms of focal length, but pretty much I would say that Craig at Canon Rumors got it about 98% correct. Other lenses we're supposed to be getting this year is a couple of tilt shift lens, the 14 and 24 millimeter f4 and f3.5 respectively. And of course, there's another macro lens, and that's a 24 millimeter f1.8 image stabilized STM macro. So some really great lenses coming out in 2022. At least that's what we're led to believe. Remember, all these lenses were supposed to be coming out in 2021, and we all know why it hasn't happened. There's so many constraints on the planet right now, so many issues that are just making it very hard to get the materials, source materials, to get components to actually manufacture certain lenses. And some jurisdictions aren't producing, they're shut down. It's just a whole mess. So all those items that haven't come to pass at this point, all those lenses that we still haven't heard anything about, I'd expect to get at least a handful of these coming out in the second half of 2022, but nothing in the first half. The first half was supposed to be big for Canon, and we've had nothing. Okay, well, not nothing. We did have the R5C, and yes, we had the 800 millimeter and the 1200 millimeter. I was hoping for more. I was hoping to see at least one APS-C camera for the RF mount. I was hoping to see the Canon R7. I was hoping to see a replacement for the Canon EOS RP, a replacement for the Canon EOS R. So many potential cameras coming out, and we haven't even talked about the EFM mount. Canon is behind in terms of the roadmap compared to the competition like Sony, which is currently leading worldwide sales of mirrorless cameras. And the reason why Sony is leading, well, Canon and Nikon have been relatively slow to update their camera offerings in the mirrorless mount. Now, Nikon has picked up the pace a little bit more than Canon. They've released their flagship full-frame mirrorless camera, the Nikon Z9, and it is a tremendous camera. It's very exciting, very, very powerful. Sony's released their flagship camera, the Alpha 1, but Canon hasn't released their flagship. So no flagship camera, no Canon R7, no EOS R replacement, no EOS RP replacement, and we're missing a whole bunch of lenses. I do expect we are going to get some announcements in the second half of 2022, and with NAB taking place very shortly, I would expect some announcements on cinema cameras, a pair of 8K cinema cameras, a Super 35 and a full frame, as well as a 4K camera. And who knows, maybe we'll get some announcements by Sony too. But hang in there. I know it's a tough time of year. I know that we're not getting a lot of the announcements that we want, but news is coming. Rumors are coming. As soon as I know more, I'll let you know. So it's really important to go ahead and click that subscribe button and choose all notifications. So that way, as soon as I update with the latest news and rumors, you'll be one of the first to know. That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.